Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to Magento 1 End-of-Life Migration CX webinar, Front-End Enhancements for New Age Experiences with Redstage, Amasty, and HiConversion. The webinar will start shortly. Hello again, and welcome to the webinar, Migration CX, Front-End Enhancements for New Age Experiences with Redstage, Amasty, and HiConversion. To begin recapping the series that we've done on Magento End of Life, there are plenty of risks about not migrating that today's merchants should pay attention to. Along with that, there are even more benefits to migrate sooner than later, which you should focus on and consider in your migration plan for the months ahead. End of life is in June 2020, but that doesn't mean that you have until 2020 to begin your migration. That's something you should be thinking about now. It's something that you should be working on presently, and these are all the things that you should start considering for your migration planning. Redstage and our partners have decided to come together on this initiative because, one, there wasn't enough awareness about it in the market, we thought, and two, because we all have different solutions that can help merchants migrate better, and not just about migrating faster or easier, but to migrate their site and create a best-in-class experience, and use this time to really optimize, really think about all those things that maybe you were planning on adding to your first Magento store that you didn't get a chance to, and see the new kinds of technology and tactics to really create that best-in-class experience. Now I'll introduce our speakers. On Redstage side, we have Oliver, Natalia from Amasty, and we have Tim from HiConversion. Take it away, Natalia.
Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining this webinar. Much has been said during this series of webinars about the process of migration to Magento 2, and the very fact that Magento 1 will receive no further support after June 2020 is a great motivation itself. And we all want to avoid the risks of using an unsupported platform after all, so that's what we're going to talk about today. The good news is that Magento 2 has proved to be a major step up from Magento 1, and no wonder that over 40,000 live e-commerce sites are already powered by Magento 2. Could we please switch to the next slide? Thank you. According to the statistics, 40,000 live e-commerce sites are already powered by Magento 2. And on the next slide, we see just a few examples of the world-known brands who are already on Magento 2. Good example to look at. So why is Magento 2 in fact better for you than Magento 1? Reason number one, that would be the next slide, is that the list of technologies and tools supported by Magento 2 is greater than that of Magento 1. Just look at Magento 2.3 with its advanced security, performance, MSI, integration with Elasticsearch and PWAs. And surely we wait for even more options, such as the much-needed page builder, for instance. Reason number two, faster loading performance. Just look at the numbers on the next slide. Magento 2 offers 50% faster page load compared to Magento 1. Good enough. Reason number three is the notably improved admin interface. It's needless to say that Magento 2 has solved the problem of the complex navigation and introduced a much simpler and more attractive interface, which is a good news for non-technical users. Next reason would be the streamlined checkout. combined with mobile optimization, these are two meaningful factors that result in considerable increase in checkout speed. This ensures a great job in shopping cart abandonment and a higher conversion rate. Next reason would be that Magento 2 is responsive and SEO friendly, which is a great asset when dealing with the millennial shoppers. And of course, Magento 2 solved the problem of the page reloads every time an item was added to the shopping cart. This led to a performance increase and again, a drop in shopping cart abandonment. And last but not least, it is the split database. Unlike Magento 1, version 2 allows you to split the database into 3 separate instances: product data, checkout, and orders. And this helps you a lot to avoid database overloads. And these are just these reasons are just the tip of the iceberg, because the list of technical improvements alone would take a while to go through. So let's talk about what you actually need to do to migrate. In order to migrate, you need to go through at least 4 basic steps. Please switch to the next slide. Step number 1 would be data migration. The highest risk here is the loss of data and no backup. If your data was messed during the migration, your customers will most likely see a complete disorder instead of a well-organized product. What's worse, this directly influences your website position in Google search, or still, without a backup, you may lose the previous shape of your pages forever. Step number 2, extensions migration. Some extensions are not available for Magento 2 version. Many of the Magento 2 modules have a much wider functionality, meaning that you can cover the same features with the same number of extensions or even fewer of them. So, of course, planning migration to Magento 2 would be a good time to consider the add-ons that you have and to get rid of the unnecessary ones. Step number 3 is custom code migration. For this task, Magento offers Code Magento Toolkit, which is a converter of sorts that can transform your custom Magento 1 code into its Magento 2 version. This will definitely save you some time on the routine work, but you will still have to do some migration manually. And finally, theme migration. The bad news is that you can't migrate to your current Magento 1 theme, but on the bright side, you have the alternatives: to develop a custom theme, to choose a new Magento 2 theme, or to apply the default Luma theme. So switching to the next slide, let's see what are the most common migration risks. We can roughly divide all the migration risks into 4 groups we can see on the next slide. So the groups are time, budget, technology, and marketing. So how does that work in real life? Say you decided it will take you 1 month to migrate to Magento 2, but you didn't actually do any planning. In theory, why not? It's possible, but only in case you've chosen a new theme, you have no Magento 1 extensions or custom code to migrate, and have a great team of technical professionals to do the job. But let's imagine you've forgotten that you wanted to add some new algorithms to MSI with a new extension. What does it mean? Basically, it means that you have to find a solution from a reliable vendor, make sure it meets your and system requirements, and decide whether to order an additional installation, delegate this work to your in-house developers, or find an outsourcing team to do that. This process takes time. And let's imagine that your migration team has underestimated the process of data migration. And what if the chosen extension will be incompatible with the custom code? Of course, in that case, you risk missing the deadline, as all of this will lead to an increased workload on your team. And then it will be a good time to sit down and calculate the cost, because purchasing an extension, ordering the installation service, or outsourcing the job to developers would cost you money. Then say when choosing a new extension for MSI, you've come across a good shipping suit from another vendor. Your team has installed it and came across incompatibility issues. The time and money are gone, and you need to do something about the incompatibility, which can affect your project timeline and budget. As for marketing, a slow website and performance and load problems due to poorly planned and executed migration may result in cart abandonment and traffic reduction. And however hard your marketing may try, your revenue will decrease, which makes sense in these terms. So what are your steps to reduce or even avoid these risks altogether? So as we can see, your step number 1 would be pre-migration review. Check the functionality of the store and ensure that you have the same features in your custom Magento 2 code and extensions. Remember that some of the extensions may have differences in functionality or can be removed altogether. Step number 2, migration plan. Create an A to Z migration plan. If you're not tech savvy or don't have a professional team of Magento certified developers, you'd better purchase a complete service pack. Let the professionals do the work properly, because even a minor error can lead to a major revenue loss. Step number 3, decide on Magento 2 extensions and theme. Compare Magento 2 functionality with the previous version. It's entirely possible that you don't need some of the extensions you used to have on Magento 1, like multiple store inventory management, for instance. And be sure that you've found alternatives for all those extensions that you still need to have on Magento 2. And of course, don't forget about the theme. As you already know, you have quite a few options there. Step number 4, backup Magento data. Make sure that you have an actual backup of your Magento data. Choose the time with the least traffic on the website to migrate the data. And do test your Magento 2 functionality after the data was successfully migrated. And last but not least, reduce your SEO risks. All the previous steps influence your SEO rankings per se, but to further reduce the risks affecting your site ranking and position in Google, you can use specific add-ons like Amasty SEO toolkit, for instance. We merged 6 plugins in one to solve all the most frequent SEO problems at one stroke. The advanced pagination and redirects will help you to avoid broken links and to improve indexing. Unique product URL settings will help you to avoid product URL duplicating. And automated cross-links, XML and HTML sitemaps, rich snippets, and more are included. So do try and find the tools and solutions that might help you here. And as an afterword, on the next slide, we can see a very down-to-the-point quote from Magento migration overview. I can only add here that once you've planned everything in advance and invested efforts in pre-migration stage, you have absolutely nothing to worry about. Moreover, if you still have any doubts, just take a look around. There are many services offering migration on a turnkey basis. So all you need to do is to plan ahead and treat the migration as a way for your business to grow. Thank you for your attention.
Great. Thanks, Natalia. Thanks, Don. This is Tim Bone from HiConversion. And just kind of picking up where on one of the themes that Natalia mentioned, which is a pre-migration review, we want to talk a little bit about the importance of data and really having a data-driven, fact-driven replatforming initiative. So Don, if you could move to the next slide, please. So there's a huge opportunity, obviously, with a replatform. All of the many things that Natalia talked about the great things about moving to Magento 2, you're going to get all those. It's going to, at the end of the day, be a much better experience for you and for your users. But what we've seen is that right after initial replatforming, we see a very large percentage of merchants actually have a little bit of a conversion decrease. And there's any number of reasons that could happen. But what we want to talk to you about is how you can use data and even testing, and that's a little counter to what people think sometimes when they think about trying to run a replatform. They don't want to test. There's a proper way to use testing to make sure that you are making your best effort at coming out of the gate, being one of those sites that converts better. But even if you have a little bit of a dip at first, you have all of the right data and right information to very quickly get out of that 80% and up into the merchant bucket where people are performing better. So Don, next slide, please. Great, thank you. So it all starts with data. And you really need to have a comprehensive data set of your existing site. So this is this pre-migration review. And what HiConversion provides you is a unified data structure that's going to capture all of your basic visit analytics and also all of your customer experience analytics, and allows you to really review those in a graphic presentation and through a number of tools to make it easy to understand what's going on your website today. So when I'm going to get ready to start and move over to my new platform, one of the things I really want to make sure I understand is what's really working on my website today. What are the paths to purchase? What does my sales funnel look like? And those are things you want to use extra care about making sure you're not impacting during that transition. After the replatform, you want to have this information available to you so you can go in and say, okay, I know this was a strong path to purchase for me. I know this was a strong section of the website. I got a lot of clicks here, and the clicks here led to eventual conversions. I want to make sure I've kept that. If you do, you're going to have a few that don't perform as well on the new site, but you'll be able to very quickly identify what those are and zero in on them. So for instance, Don, if you can go to the next slide. So this is a path to purchase graphic. So what this is doing is laying out what does the flow look like on your current site, and then you move to the new site, it'll be the new site. What does the flow look like as a user moves through and converts? So you see the circled area here. What it'll do is tell you each page that user moved through to get to the outside edge of the circle. The outside edge of the circle represents a conversion. So you can very easily see what are my strongest performing paths to purchase, and what does each page sequentially in that journey look like. So when I move to my new site, one of the many things I want to do, and this is something where you're going to have the data from the tool and you're going to have the expertise from Redstage, is to look at, here's my old site data, here's my new site data. The things that I expect to be strong, like this path to purchase, for instance, I can very quickly and easily say, did I manage to maintain this? If I didn't maintain this, which step along this process, at which of these pages did I lose people in the new structure where I maintained them and drove them through to conversion in the old structure? So not only, data is obviously critical regardless, but it's particularly critical, and a full, robust set of data is particularly critical to start gathering before you move to the new platform, so you've got that baseline and you can see where did I get better and where are my opportunities to drill down and really fix some things that maybe got changed and had an unexpected impact. So Don, if you can move to the next one, please. And just give you one quick example of something that we saw with one of our customers. Everyone thought this was kind of a no-brainer. It was, let's take and create a much more visually interesting style when I mouse over my navigation. So instead of just kind of a dry, classic drop-down, let's put some really strong visual images there to direct them towards the right section, whether it's lipsticks or nail polishes, etc. And everybody looked at it and said, yeah, this is, this is clearly going to be a winner. But when we tried it out, it actually didn't work out. So we reverted back. Now, you're obviously in the middle of a replatforming, you're not going to run around testing too many different things, but there are some elements that you're going to have to change. And you can test those leveraging HiConversion on your existing site without actually changing the site to see what is this impact going to look like when I move over. So if you've got those key elements and you've identified what those are from your path to purchase analysis, and I'm looking to make a change on one of those pages, let's go ahead and test that change before we move over and make sure we've optimized our chances for success on the new platform. So it's using that data, and then strategic testing in combination is really going to significantly increase your opportunity to very quickly, when you move over to that new site, start seeing significant gains in conversions. Don, next one. Thank you. Now, obviously, the other thing everybody's going to worry about when you're going through a replatforming is resource. It tends to be a very resource-intensive activity, And so one of the great things about working with HiConversion is that there is a native connector into Magento. So you don't need to do any programming. It's really a simple 10-15 minute addition of a small tag, no particular IT support needed. It doesn't interrupt your business. It doesn't create new load. Very reliable and very secure. So it's a very simple implementation. And as soon as you've got that tag installed, you're gathering all this rich, robust set of data. That's really going to enable the Redstage team to go in, take a look at what you're doing, and help you understand, hey, here are the things we need to be particularly cautious about. And again, when I get to my new site, again, the Redstage team will be able to work with you to compare and contrast old versus new. But the critical thing is, it's very easy to implement and get started. This isn't something you have to think, oh no, this is another giant task on the plate and I've got too much. It's very easy to go. And Don, one more, please. Now, when you get to the new site, one of the things we're going to suggest is, obviously you want to continue to optimize on an ongoing basis. You get to the new site, you figure out what's going on, you get your conversion rates up well above what you were doing previously, but continuous optimization is a big task. There are so many elements on your page and so many combinations that you can play on those elements when I start mixing and matching them, that it's really not possible for any merchant on a standalone basis or even for any just one SI to test all of these different variations. So because of that, we formed, working with PayPal, Magento, Redstage, and some other leading systems integrators, a community optimization initiative where we leverage standardized experiments. So we have a full library of experiments, community validated, high confidence of success that can just be pulled off the shelf, pre-configured, easy to plug in. We run those across multiple merchants. We roll up anonymized data so we can share those learnings. And we like to say is it allows us really by working together to test, learn, and adapt at the speed of mobile. And then obviously continuously innovate. So as we're learning from the tests, we launch new tests. As we run tests that don't perform as well as we thought they might, we take those out of the library, replace them with new tests. But it's really the power of that community, the ability to work with a whole range of other merchants, SIs, et cetera, and learn together that drives this and really gives you that accelerated power of that continuous optimization. So hopefully I gave you a couple of new things to think about in terms of how you want to leverage data and testing in your replatforming. And I will turn it back over to the Redstage team.
Yep, thanks, Tim. So Tim just gave us a good overview of what it means to be data-driven and the way that looks in terms of collecting that data. Now I want to walk you through one of the applications we're using of this process. So just to give you some background, Magento and Redstage and HiConversion and PayPal, as well as a number of other agencies and merchants, have been working together for a little over a year now, basically trying to solve the mobile conversion gap. And what I mean about the mobile conversion gap is, we're past that point where more than half of the visitors to most sites are on mobile devices, and yet we're seeing less than half the conversion rate for those devices. So that's a problem that we're trying to solve here. And what we're starting to see is we're getting to a point where we're moving past the whole paradigm of responsive design. When responsive design came out, we were looking at a scenario where we were trying to bring all of the functionality from our desktop devices onto our mobile devices and not really changing the experience too much, but just changing the interface. So what we're seeing here now, what we're really learning from this program is that when we run a test on a number of devices, we're seeing vastly different results on our tablets, on our phones, and on our desktop devices. And this is really driving home the lesson that we need to really diverge in terms of experience when we're trying to optimize conversion and revenue per visitor for mobile devices. So using that kind of process that Tim just described, where we use the data to figure out where are the opportunities for improvement, and then once that's identified, what do we do to, kind of change that experience so we can see how we can, optimize using that data. What I'm showing you here is a fairly simple early, one of the earlier tests that we did on mobile devices. And what we're trying to do here is make that credit card entry step easier. Anyone that's on a phone, probably all of us, has had this frustration of you find something you want to buy, you're all ready to check out. A customer who's made it to this step has shown their intent to purchase, and then they get to this credit card step, and now they got to dig out a credit card, they got to enter the number, and it's definitely one of the most frustrating parts of the checkout when you're using a phone. So this is kind of an early attempt at making this process easier, and what we're doing here is we're testing the traditional kind of experience versus just some minor improvements. Let's make the entry field numeric instead of alphanumeric, and let's automatically detect that credit card number as the customer is typing it in, both to take that step away from something they have to do and just to show them, give them a little bit of confidence that, this site already knows what card they're using. It probably works pretty well. Now, just to drive home, I want to emphasize how important this is to get this part of the experience right. Millennials are already the biggest part of the workforce out there. They're the biggest generation in the workforce, and that's only going to increase. And as people continue to move more and more over to mobile devices, we're seeing that this is a part of the site experience that we really need to get right. I talked a little bit earlier about the mobile conversion gap. We should really be looking at that as a problem that needs solving, and not as an area where we can gain a few extra percentage points in the in the revenue per visitor. This is really something that we have to get right as our user base shifts more and more over to millennials and over to mobile devices. So I wanted to highlight this set of results here, coming from that test that I described a little earlier, and show really how different the results are from device to device. Now, this is an example from 5 different merchants, so this is averaged out over a few different merchants, and this kind of surprised us in that it gained a little bit more on desktop than it did on a tablet or a mobile device. We saw almost no change in phone, but a decrease in revenue per visitor from tablet and an increase for desktop. So our intuition is often wrong here, and it's really important to be gathering the data and to be doing these kinds of tests, because otherwise we would have made a change here which we thought was going to improve the experience for tablet and mobile visitors, when really what we're seeing is that overall this had a negative effect. Some sites it had a positive effect, and for some sites it was basically flat. So again, using data and using experimentation to validate what we think about what mobile visitors are going to like is completely critical when we are going through this replatforming process. So just to give you an idea of how this program has grown, these are some of the statistics about the size it is, the amount of revenue that is tracked, and kind of the overall results that we're getting. Overall, over this entire test, we have an average of 8.6% in revenue per visitor, and just bear in mind that is an increase in RPV for those visitors who have shown that intent to purchase and made it to that checkout step. And when we apply that to all the visitors that are participating in this test and making it to this step, that represents a potential increase of $22 million in revenue. So, let's see, next slide. You know, we do have 20 plus merchants involved just under Redstage in this program. You know, there are a number of other agencies involved as well, each with their own set of merchants. So this is a program that really has been growing and growing under its own steam, and as we validate these results and start making these merchants more and more money through this type of optimization process, it's only continuing. And you know, with PayPal's sponsorship here, we are inviting additional merchants on, and we'll get to that a little bit later towards the end of the program and how you can join if this is something that you would like to bring on your site as you get ready for the migration off of Magento 1 yourself. Now is actually the time to be getting started with this type of activity. If we look forward and work back from, you know, the end of life when we really need to be off of Magento 1 and onto you know, Magento 2, we have enough time here to go through that entire migration, make some theme customizations, you know, let's make those optimizations that we're talking about, and still have enough time to gather that data. We're really up against that timeline right about now. So Donna's going to talk a little bit about the program overall, get involved, and again, now is the time to get started.
All right, thanks, Ali. So right now we have a couple of free offers for everybody who joined this webinar. We have a free assessment, so anyone who's joined this webinar has been shortlisted for the free migration assessment. You know, we'll dive in with HiConversion, some data tools to really give you a good idea of where your funnel is being choked. And we can, you know, from there we can decide what front-facing, front-end optimizations we can make to change that and, you know, make your site convert better. Other than that, everyone is also welcome to join the Mobile Optimization Initiative study. You can sign up online, check out mobileoptimized.org, or just check out the link below, that little paragraph there, and you can sign up right away. It's completely free. Both of these items are completely free to join. And you know, you can start working right away. You can look at some of the tests and you know, get started on your initiative. Now, here's just a quick example of what these tests will do. So this is an example funnel, but you get to see exactly where your funnel is being choked and try and figure out exactly how to improve, you know, your pages and what needs to be done in order to correct that. All right, and I'm going to invite our speakers to come back really quickly for our Q&A session. We've got a couple of questions that came in, so give me a second, and I'll go through those to see if we've got some good ones. Let me see. Okay, I think I've got one here for Ali. So, Ali, what does the process look like to get involved in the Mobile Optimization Initiative?
So Tim went through a little bit earlier about what that process looks like to get the HiConversion tag installed. That would be the first step. That will allow us to start collecting that data. From there, based on the opportunities that we see and the fit to some of the templates that HiConversion has built, you know, to that specific merchant's test, we want to suggest a few different, you know, possible fits to the merchant. In the end, it will be your decision about what's tested on your site, and you know, any test that we see a negative result from, or just for whatever other reason it's not something that you want to be doing, those can be added or removed, you know, accordingly. But Redstage will basically help you, looking at the data, decide what is going to potentially have the best impact. You know, setting up the tags is going to take probably a week or two. Doing that analysis I just described is probably going to take another 2 to 3 weeks, depending on your level of traffic. And then actually implementing the test is a fairly quick 1 to 2 day process. From there, you'll start to see data, you know, within a week, and from there it will be a continuous process of evaluation, and then adding and removing tests depending on the results that we see.
All right, thanks, Ali. And maybe here's a good one for Tim. What's the goal of the Mobile Optimization Initiative? Why are we doing this?
That's a great question. So the goal is really to raise mobile conversion rates up to a par with conversion rates from desktop. You know, as we're moving from we moved from mobile first, we're really seeing more and more of a move to mobile only. And so the idea that, well, mobile is okay for looking things up, but people are going to buy on desktop, we got to kind of throw that out the window. And you know, studies show that there's a very significant, I'm sure everybody can see this in their own sites, there's a very significant disconnect between conversion rates from desktop and mobile, and that's not just due to form factor. There's a whole bunch of things, and those are the things we find out in the mobile optimization initiative. There's a whole bunch of things you can change to really drive up that mobile optimization rate. But you know, if you do a compare and contrast, if you were able to, for the average merchant, if you were able to increase your mobile conversion rate to the level of your desktop rate, you'd see well over 100% increase in your revenue. Seemed like a mountain that we couldn't climb. People were a little skeptical. Fine. Improve it 50%. You're still going to see a very dramatic increase in revenue, more than really anything else you could do. But again, I think I mentioned this earlier, there's so many different things you can test and try in terms of mixing and matching the different elements on your page, adding them, taking them away. The only way that we can really test and learn fast enough to keep up with the pace of the changing mobile market is to do it collaboratively. So it's really those two things, a huge revenue opportunity if we can significantly increase that conversion rate, and then just the size of the task of really trying to test the different variants. That's what really caused us to form the community to learn collaboratively.
All right, great answer. Well, thank you, Tim. Thank you, Natalia, and thank you, Ali, for joining us today. Everyone who's attended, you know, thank you guys so much for joining us. We had a lot of attendees today. Really looking forward to the next webinar in the series, which if you go to redstage.com/M1EOL for Magento 1 End of Life, you can find some more webinars listed on there. We're going to have at least 3 more of these coming up. So look forward to those and stay tuned for more. Thank you all.